meeting to order. Salute to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requiring the adjournment of the Meeting0 has been satisfied by forwarding news released in the Asbury Park Press on December 12, 2013, stating that a regular meeting of the Colts Township Committee would be held on October 29, 2014 at 7:30 p.m. at Town Hall. Notice requiring to be posted on the Township Bulletin Board. Copy is on file in the office of the Township Clerk.
roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Schatzel.
Here.
Committeeman Engel is called away for a work emergency, will not be attending tonight. Committeeman Orgo.
Here.
Committeeman Fitzgerald.
Here.
Mayor Mackey.
Present. Number one this evening is the approval of the minutes from October 8, 2014. Any comments on the committee? So moved. Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Schatzel.
Yes.
Committeeman Orgo.
Yes.
Committeeman Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Mayor Mackey.
Yes. Number two this evening is a mayor's proclamation. It's for Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. I'm going to read it. We'll do a brief presentation. We have somebody here to say a couple of words on this very important recognition. This declares November as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month for the Township of Colts Neck. Whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 39,590 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancer, is currently the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the second by 2020. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 6%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 1,220 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2014, whereas the Recalcitrant Cancer Research Act was signed into law in 2013, which calls on the National Cancer Institute to develop a scientific framework or strategic plans for pancreatic cancer and other deadly cancers, which will help provide the strategic direction and guidance needed to make true progress against these diseases. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network is the national organization serving the pancreatic cancer community in the Township of Colts Neck and nationwide through a comprehensive approach that includes public policy, research funding, patient services, and public awareness and education related to developing effective treatments and a cure for pancreatic cancer. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in the Township of Colts Neck support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as to those who have lost their lives to the disease, and are committed to nothing less than a cure. And whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the Township of Colts Neck are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Russell Mackey, Mayor of the Township of Colts Neck, County and Monmouth, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim November as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month within the Township of Colts Neck. The testimony whereof I have here to set my hand this 29th day of October 2014, and I will make a presentation. Jill Rothstein. Jill is here on behalf of Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and I'd like to present her with the proclamation, and she's going to say a few words about the efforts that are being undertaken.
First, I have this for you.
Thank you so much.
Triple ribbon because.
Would you mind? Well,
You know, people see pink ribbons everywhere.
we know breast cancer.
And it's wonderful as a woman, and I have a good friend who's several years younger than me, who was diagnosed recently. So I support all of that, but honestly, we've got to pay attention to all of the cancers. I know that 95% of the people who are diagnosed with breast cancer will survive, and 95% of the people diagnosed with pancreatic cancer will die. So all of us here, unfortunately, we're diagnosed today. Probably 5 of us will be alive at the end of a year, and maybe 2 at the end of 5 years. The thing that concerns me the most, and my father passed away, I'm wearing these dog tags, 6 years ago in a week. So this has been a really difficult one for me, October, just remembering all that. But what's happening is the incidence has increased dramatically. I don't know if you can hear all of the words in here. It's a lot of information, but they are expecting it to be the second most deadly cancer in the country by 2020. And last week, as an example, I'm taking an adult ed class. There are 10 people in the class. And I spoke for a minute about Awareness Month and a walk we're having on November 9th. And at the end of the class, 5 people came up to me and told me that they personally have been affected with pancreatic cancer, whether it's a friend, a relative, a neighbor. I was stunned. I went out to the main office and asked them if they could pass that information to the school, because it's held in one of the schools in the county. And she started to cry and said one of her best friends was diagnosed recently. So it is happening more and more and more. When my father died, it was very rare. You knew if you got it, you were a dead man, that was it. It was the same year as Patrick Swayze. He lived for a while, but all the money in the world didn't help. So what I ask all of you to do is, if you have a business, make an awareness day. Have all of your employees wear purple. If you know somebody in school, as an example, run an awareness day in your school in November. My daughter did it in Freehold Township when she was a senior, and all the teachers wore purple for a day. The students, some students dyed their hair purple. It was very cool, and it just perpetuates it. Make a donation if you can afford it. Obviously, that's the best because the money goes to research. The organization is PanCan, like pancreatic cancer, pancan.org. We're having a walk November 9th in Parsippany. I'm proud that Monmouth County is sponsoring something November 1st. In Neptune through the West Garden organization, and I do have, for Town Hall, if you wouldn't mind putting these up, they peel right off in November, just to sort of add a little bit more. So if anyone has any questions, but two doors would work? Okay, thank you.
Joe, what's the first early, I know it's something that most people ignore the symptoms because they seem so like so many other things. What are the early symptoms that would...
By the time you have a symptom, generally it's metastasized. So most people who survive, it's been caught by accident. Jaundice, if you're jaundiced, it's already hitting your liver. My father had pain in his shoulder, which he thought was from playing golf. It so happens that a nerve in the shoulder is connected to a nerve in the pancreas. So who would have thought? Loss of appetite, but then again, you're really... Somebody else told me recently that, I know this woman who's my age, one of her clients' brother died in 6 weeks. He was completely healthy. They diagnosed him and he died. And it's getting younger and younger. It used to be that it was more my dad's age in their 70s, and now it's hitting people in their 20s. My neighbor across the street, her 60-year-old father-in-law and her 30-year-old brother-in-law. Anyway, I'm sorry. Just
my grandmother died from pancreatic, my mother's mother. And I just read something promising. There was a study from somewhere, fairly large, that talked about the enteric aspirin. If you happen to be someone who takes those for your heart, there's I thought I read a 39% reduction in the incidence of pancreatic cancer, and the longer you're taking it, the better your chances are.
It's like all cancers. Don't smoke, eat healthy, exercise. It will improve your odds. My father did all of those, and it didn't matter for him, but maybe it was his time. Anyway, I have, would anyone be interested in a flyer for the walk? I'll give you one if you need it.
Thanks, I'm a sponsor for the walk.
Are you sponsored for the walk? Thank you. I really appreciate it. Oh, the Neptune one, yeah.
First one, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Number 3 this evening is ordinance 2014-18. This is an ordinance amending and revising Chapter 137, Hotels and Motels of the Code of Township of Colts Neck. It's a second reading by title. For those of you who may have missed the prior recitations of the summary of the amendments to this ordinance, what we are looking to do is to enhance the ability of our code enforcement officer and our police department to keep up to date as to who is staying in our hotels and to make sure they are complying with our existing ordinances as far as length of stay and other legal and illegal activities. And this amendment just imposes certain obligations on the innkeeper to keep a registry with certain information that would be available for code enforcement and law enforcement purposes. Any comments from the committee on this one?
And the changes that we talked about the last time were incorporated by the senator, and I appreciate that. There's the bound.
And an electronic version of the
Right,
legislation.
and then also the ability to relax it in the event of a state of emergency, because so many of our help us continue to stay.
Yeah.
And we also included a notice for the US.
Great. So I agree to handle it.
Any other comments from the committee on this? No other comments. I'll open it to comments from the public. Anybody have any comments on this proposed amendment to this ordinance? Vince?
Yes, I think this is a very good measure. I think it will be helpful, and I'm applaud its passage.
Anybody else? All right, so no further comments from the public. I'm going to close the public hearing. I'll take a motion to approve this ordinance.
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Shatsel?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor McKinney?
Yes. Number 4 this evening is ordinance 2014-19. This is an ordinance establishing Chapter 172 property abandonment of the Code of the Township of Colts Neck. This is also a second reading by title. And again, for those who have not been here for the last couple of meetings, this ordinance is a new creature, and what it is been enabled by is a new state statute that aims to give municipalities certain remedies against property owners and lien holders of abandoned properties. It's been presented to the Township Committee that there have been some issues with abandoned properties in town, and we are looking forward to addressing those issues as expeditiously as possible within the confines of the new ordinance and the state statute. Any comments from the committee on that? All right, seeing no comments from the committee, I'll open it to comments from the public. Any comments from the public this evening on this particular ordinance? Vince?
Again, timely and appropriate. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else, folks? Any other comments from the public on this one? All right, seeing no comments, additional comments from the public, I'll close the public hearing. Take a motion to approve. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Shatsel?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor McKinney?
Yes. Number 5 this evening. Yeah, you got it. It'll be a presentation by Mr. Salafieri on behalf of Mercer Management LLC. This relates to the vacation of the deed restriction on the Mercer Road subdivision.
Good evening, Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. I called the applicant's engineer before the meeting, and an inquiry was made whether the engineer was coming, and he told me that he got a message from the client sometime this afternoon indicating that they did not want to proceed tonight. No one told me, unfortunately. Or us. Or you, right? So, not knowing what the intention of my client is there a way we can carry this to the next committee meeting and we'll figure out what's happening between now and then?
Do we need to do that by motion?
When is the next committee meeting?
November 12th?
Is that legally?
11/12.
No,
The week before.
I'll report back to you either way, Bob, and let you know what we're doing.
Okay.
All right?
Thanks for coming.
everyone.
Good to see you, though.
Good night.
Homework. Tim, you're up.
Bring a chair.
Yeah. All right, these are discussion items with our planner, Tim Russo. We got 2 of them this evening. The first relates to the amendment of the development regulations ordinance, the AG lot size averaging. And Tim, can you explain that?
The ordinance basically does two things. First is our definition of site plan exempt. It exempts additions and also single-family dwellings and improvements to detached single-family dwellings, except for ponds and recreation pools. It specifically requires site plan approval for ponds and recreation pools. That has generated a few applications in front of the planning board over the past several years. The problem is that the municipal land use law specifically exempts residential properties detached single or two-family dwellings from site plan approval. So the planning board attorney in the past has opined that our ordinance is actually contrary to the municipal land use law. And what the ordinance does is that it eliminates that requirement for site plan approval for ponds and tennis courts and allows them to be exempt consistent with the municipal land use law.
And so we're proposing an amendment to the ordinance to be consistent with the advice of council from the plan.
Yes. second has to do with lot size averaging developments.
I just want to know one second. So you could approve a pond, but they would have to go before the board for a pool.
No, a pool, I would approve as long as it met the setback requirements, same thing with tennis courts now. If the tennis court kicks in the variance, then it'd be in front of the zoning board of adjustment.
There's no formal site plan required.
Well, once you adopt it, so
Correct.
The term recreational courts instead of tennis courts, does that concern you at all? Because we've had some issues with some sports
Now,
complex
well, I would
issues.
say that's the term that the ordinance uses, recreation courts. Technically, the tennis courts is 90% of the applications, but we've had a couple of sports courts that are the same thing that require site plan.
But the issues with those was lot coverage issues, not.
Well, not necessarily, we've had ones that were
Lights.
completely complying, and all we needed was site plan approval in terms of, things.
Yeah, I think what the deputy mayor was referring to as some past issues that we found.
Both lot coverage and lights.
But they would require.
Well, they would still need variances if they had a lot of coverage issue.
Yeah, so that wouldn't change at all.
Okay. Well, I'm just, taking recreation courts out, I'm wondering if that confuses it instead of tennis courts.
But if you want to put a basketball court in, which is half the size of a tennis court, but you don't do that without having to go for a second.
900 square feet is the definition. It doesn't matter what type the court was, if it's under 900 square feet, then it doesn't require, doesn't give a definition of a recreation court. If it's over 900 square feet, it meets the definition of a recreation court.
So what about the lights?
Lights are prohibited under the current ordinance.
And that doesn't change, that won't change.
That will not change. The second issue,
I'm sorry, the 900 square feet is, I don't remember it being in the ordinance.
it's under our current ordinance, it's not in this ordinance, it's the current definition of recreation ordinance.
Okay, thanks.
All right, second one?
Second was lot coverage. It affects only the lot size averaging developments. Lot size averaging developments allow you to create either 10-acre lots or lots that are less than 5 acres in size. The theory is if you had 100 acres, instead of having 10-acre farmettes, to reduce your lot size on 9 of them down to 2 acres at a minimum, and then keep the residual properties of large tract of agricultural uses. When you're looking at those reduced size lots, they have the exact same area setback requirements as a conventional A1 development. 2 acres in size, 75-foot front yard setback, 50-foot side and rear yard setback. However, building and total lot coverage are different between the two. In a lot size averaging development, you're allowed to have 10% building coverage, where in conventional A1 is 6.6. However, for lot coverage, in the same size lot, A1 lot size averaging, it's only 15%, and conventional A1 development would be 20% for it. So you're allowed a bigger house than on the lot size averaging, but less coverage for it, when the lot area is completely the same for it. The Long Range Planning Committee addressed this issue, looked at it, and understands why you would want a larger lot on the lot size averaging developments, because you're in more open space areas compared to the conventional A1 development. But since the lot sizes are exactly the same, the setbacks are the same, they believe that the underlying principles for lot coverage should be applied equally between the two forms of development. So all it does is it increases the 15% lot coverage for a lot size averaging lot to 20%, consistent with the A1 zone.
Yeah, so you're on one there?
I'm not this year, but, I kind of, that whole lot averaging thing is has been stuck on my craw, because we end up with these, these subdivisions where, say, in a 50 or 60 acre piece of property, you end up with 1 30-acre lot, and I realize that encourages the agricultural intent, but then we end up with these lots that just don't generally fit into whatever the area is that's being developed. So I'm thinking of, I hate to pick on anybody who's already approved, but, Big Crossroad, that's Crescent, sorry. They have those lots that are down, that, they're almost like they just want to be disassociated with the rest of the development, and they got a bonus lot, for donor, and I don't, my thought is that I'd like to take a hard look at making the requirements, because I'd like to see it encouraged to not reduce down to 2-acre lots. If they had a 2.5-acre lot, or 2.5-acre lots, the lot size coverage, they wouldn't have no problem, they could build the same size houses, but they've got a bonus for that averaging with the bonus lot. So, I understand smarter guys than I are on planning, but
On the big end subdivision, none of those lots are just 2 acres. All of those lots that line the street going down,
Are they bigger than
they're all 3 acres minimum.
They just don't look like it, 'cause they're all.
A lot of it's overage acres because they have wetlands and flood hazard areas in back of the property that they can't develop.
Right, it's 9 more people that come before this group and ask for relief, they put something in the backyard.
Well, the reason we changed it, years ago, you could do the lot size average, and they were making 5 and 6 acre, 7 acre lots. Flock Road is a perfect example of that. And that's when it was introduced, because it wasn't saving the farmland like it was supposed to. It was eating it up, and that's why they made it. What's a 3 acre maximum, 3.5?
It's 88,000 square feet, basically 2 acres is the minimum lot, and then it's 4.9 acres is your maximum, 200,000 square feet.
So keep it from being farmhouse to make it seem like it was something.
Right.
You want that big residual lot.
Right.
But the idea behind this was to get consistency, but there's really, seems to be no reason for an inconsistency.
No, the whole rest of town, rest of the development, A1, whatever it is 20% and they're 15. And the problem was, back in the day when we had AG and we subdivided them out and everything else like that, there was no 15%. So most of the people automatically are over already.
Right.
And they haven't even done anything. So
So,
5%, some places will have a place to wiggle, some people won't.
just for sake of consistency, don't see punitive not to,
Save more homes and zoning.
which is really what it is.
Do you want to do it all?
Jim? All right, you okay to reduce those?
If the governing body is in approval with the recommendations and the discussion, this would be listed for introduction at your next meeting.
Good, and I'll be supportive. I now have a better understanding of what the, well, I didn't get it. So yes, thank you.
I'll look for that at the next meeting for introduction.
Very good. Thanks, Tim.
Now you should have a more.
What do?
So I had 3 trees, I'm not sure.
I got street trees. Yeah, I was trying to think of street trees.
But, the old ordinance always required street trees to be planted in municipal right of way. When the change occurred, I have no idea, but the current ordinance actually requires street trees associated with subdivisions to be planted 10 feet inside the right, or outside the right of way on private property. There's been a couple of issues that the town has experienced over the past few years about shade trees that outlived their usefulness, either been damaged or naturally dying, and people wanted to remove the tree. The current ordinance requires that shade tree commission approval for removing the tree. If it's in the property line or if it's in the township right of way, it doesn't matter, shade tree commission approval has to approve it. What the ordinance does is basically clarifies that. So that any tree that's within the township right of way, you need shade tree commission approval before you remove it. Any tree that's planted on the residential property, once the developer gets off his performance guarantee, then the township has no longer interest in the tree. It allows, it clarifies that the property owner can remove that tree at any time for any reason at their own expense.
Yeah, I mean, before, up until this point, the interpretation has been that the homeowner, even though the shade tree was on his or her property, did not have the right to do anything to the shade tree without the consent of the shade tree commission.
Street tree.
Street tree. Yes, street tree. Even though it was on his or her property, didn't have any right to do anything. And we want to remove that encumbrance, if you will, to allow homeowners to maintain their own properties, because these are trees that are on their property as opposed to the municipal right of way.
We made it for 5 years, right?
No, it's tied to performance guarantee.
Performance guarantee.
5 years after the performance.
No, as long as the developer is on his performance or maintenance guarantee, the homeowner has to have the tree there and can't remove it. Once the bonds are released and they're off their performance guarantees, then the township has no interest in the tree and the homeowner can do whatever they want.
The time limit was too arbitrary. This is much more tied to something.
This has been somewhat of a problem, because folks, even though subdivisions 25, even 40 years old, if they were planted as a planning board requirement, some residents are approaching the town and saying, the tree is dead, and it's your responsibility to remove it. That would take in literally thousands of trees. And this will clearly say that you can remove it at your expense. It's not our responsibility.
Right.
Why don't we amend it to allow the adjoining property to take out a street tree if it's in the municipal right of way, because 50% of them are growing into the wires, which on street.
It does. but the homeowner needs Shade Tree Commission approval if it's in the right of way.
Right, so they don't do it, let them take down whatever they want.
I don't know if you don't want to have carte blanche in your right of way.
Fortunately, on the right of way. People go into the right of way.
50% of them are into the wires, because the wires are on one side of the road or the other. And it's not.
True, but those trees that are planted there, way before, they aren't involved in a single lot house.
Clear cutting property.
I'm not talking about clear cutting, I'm talking about, you know, most towns have a mechanism where you can go, the planner can make a determination without having to go before the Shade Tree Commission, so you can order the, you know, the construction office, not throw another something on there. Somebody, you know, somebody has a tree that's diseased, or, and they want to cut it down or cut it back, I mean, why not have somebody have that discretion? It wouldn't be a third type situation, but.
I think it's something we gotta look at a later date, because I think we have to tell these people that, I mean, after the thing with the meeting with Verizon last month, we're gonna have to tell these people that, you know, you gotta turn your trees back. I mean,
Oh, Verizon was the biggest issue during Irene and Sandy. We forget all that? Half the trees, or half the wires that came down, they came down because the trees were entangled with them.
Right. But I don't think we ever actually looked to see what percentage of those trees were actually on the owner's property versus in the municipal right of way. And I think,
well, the trees that we looked at today, they are definitely on people's property.
yeah.
And I argued that they're, and it fell on deaf ears.
Now, giving them the right to do something and actually doing it, that's two different things.
Okay.
You know, most of these trees, especially the more mature trees, to take them down is a substantial expense.
The problem is, if this is a property line and this is a right of way and the tree goes up and it leans over, it's in the township right of way. Are you gonna be responsible? No.
No, but we have the right to do it. We can self-help if it encroaches on our right of way.
You're gonna send somebody to come out of these wires?
I'm just saying that we have the right to do it.
So does JCP.
Correct.
Verizon, and they've been doing it quite aggressively.
But this proposed ordinance amendment is designed to address a specific problem.
Right.
And that has presented itself a couple times recently, and that's what we're looking to do with this one. If we want to research some additional avenues of redress for trees in the right of way, long-range planning. Yeah, we're talking
I
about it.
believe Mr. Orville's shade tree liaison, he could bring this to them, to their attention for further discussion.
Yeah, this is a,
You're right, Mayor, this was designed and brought to the attention of long range plan to address a specific problem, meaning street trees.
the street trees on private property.
Street trees on private property.
Correct.
But even the new developments, those street trees are still put on the private property. They're not put on theirs.
Right, and this will give those folks the same means of redress at the expiration.
Those are not a problem, because they're all underground wires. Anything's been built in the last 10 or 15 years, are all underground utilities, so you don't have that problem.
But yeah, no, the problem, from that perspective, yes, but what's happening is the trees are dying. And whose responsibility then is it to remove them? Is it the municipality's responsibility to go on private property and remove them? Or is it the property owner's responsibility, because it's on their
I mean,
property?
some of these developments are 40-some years old.
Yeah.
And that's where they're having a problem.
Yeah, those trees are fairly mature, when they die, it's
And they want us to take care of them.
in any case.
But there's one other thing that the ordinance does. Currently, the ordinance empowers the Shade Tree Commission to promulgate their own ordinances. While I was in there, I just repealed that provision, so they were no longer
That was something that just happened to come up during our discussion, and nobody really noticed that one.
Actually, no, it's probably a little bit. Oh, no, it's okay.
Yeah, it's just commission.
So we have to repeal that portion, I think.
Do you have any commissions in town that can do that?
Environmental.
Environmental, it's not empowered in their ordinance, they can adopt the ordinances. The Environmental Commission by land, which I thought was interesting.
Commissions, you gotta be careful, Board of Health, I think, can do it.
Yeah.
None of those organizations in this country have ever even contemplated that, so let's
Well, we could
try
find
not
out.
to create a new now, doesn't exist. At any rate, Tim's point is well taken.
Yes. So, with the committee's permission, I think it will last. Mr. Infuser to go ahead with that one as well.
Yes.
Same thing, this would be on for introduction and your next meeting.
Excellent.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Onward. Number 7 this evening, Resolution 2014-116, enabling resolution, State of New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres Program.
Would like that held, Mayor. Tim and I had a conversation with Green Acres. We may have to recraft that resolution slightly and get a better explanation of it. So we would like that held for 2 weeks.
All right, we'll carry that for the next meeting. Resolution 2014-117, a resolution confirming and certifying of the Service Award Program, LoSAP credit for 2013 for Colts Neck First Aid Squad. Any comments from the committee? Jury liaison?
No comments on this. The numbers have been given, you're going to see from the squad and the fire department, as they have in past years.
Okay, any other comments on LoSAP for the First Aid Squad? All right, take a motion on that? Second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Chancellor?
With the advice of council, for the years that I've been on the committee, being members of this, I abstain from this and the next votes.
So noted. Committeeman Orgo?
Yes.
Committeeman Fitzgerald?
Yes, and to point out that Mr. Schaffel is not participating in the LoSAP program and abstains appropriately.
Yes.
Measure.
Yes. Thank you for
So
that.
there's no confusion.
Mayor Mackey?
Yes. And number 9 this evening, Resolution 2014-118 is the companion for this. This is the resolution confirming and certifying monthly service award program credits for 2013 for Colts Neck Fire Company number 1 and number 2. Mike, is your liaison, anything on this?
No, so, I know you'll notice that the form is similar to the one for the First Aid Squad, so they've gotten very meticulous and appropriately comfortable with the submission.
Any other comments from the committee on this one? Take a motion, please.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Chancellor?
Abstain.
Noted. Committeeman Orgo?
Yes.
Committeeman Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Mackey?
Yes. Consent agenda tonight is Resolution 2014-119, resolution approving change order number 1, Laird Road improvements, that's plus $58,228.81. Resolution 2014-120, a resolution authorizing the return of application fees. Planning Board application number 702, Ghana on Eagle Nest Road, the amount of $1,328. Resolution 2014-121, resolution authorizing return of application fees. Planning Board application number 710, Milan, Nantone Court, $809. Resolution 2014-122, a resolution authorizing the return of application fees. Planning Board application number 632, Colts Neck Shopping Center, $3,188.91. And resolution 2014-123, resolution approving the insertion of special item of revenue, Division of Criminal Justice, body armor grant in the amount of $2,187.80. Happy to see another grant for the Township Police Department. Any comments from the committee on that?
One comment about when I was doing the vouchers, the Ghana application on Eagle Nest Road actually had 2 different checks. One was a maintenance bond, and the other one was a return of escrows, but I don't see that on the consent agenda.
We did one for Ghana at the last meeting, so maybe that's the one that you're
All right, so we signed it.
We signed the release of maintenance. Now this is whatever.
I signed both today.
Yeah.
So one was stuff, so one was on the
One you
consent
did
agenda
last
last
time.
time. Thank you.
One was this time.
It was 3,000.
Probably just getting on the bill.
Very well, yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other comments on the consent agenda tonight?
So moved.
Take a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Chancellor?
Yes.
Committeeman Orgo?
Yes.
Committeeman Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor Mackey?
Yes. Administrative report, Paul.
Nothing on the report itself, Mayor. There was an attachment from Colts Neck PTO for approving alcohol as one of their events. Which is November 21st.
Annual event at Bucksville Park.
Correct.
Check out the last few years.
This is I'm just misreading this, it's like a sample taste of alcohol of some kind, wine or something.
Shots.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Not much. At any rate, but only the governing body can approve that. You saw their insurance certificate's been attached and all the water to approve that alcohol.
They have done it in the past.
But we're not invited.
It's a fun thing.
Yeah. So you need a motion.
Take a motion.
So moved.
Second, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none, so carried. That's all I have, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, vouchers, Mike?
I did go through the vouchers, paid for one already, up, signing check for $5,075,000. Good news is $4 million plus of that was just collecting and transferring money to the school boards, the regional board and the local board. That was in the neighborhood of 4.3 or 4.5 million of the number. I did a conscious thought, at the risk of boring everyone, I realized that everybody forgets that we're 10 or 11% of the tax dollar that's collected on an annual basis, and our budget is roughly $10 or $11 million. So our financial folks and our administrator attend to collecting $100 million, 90 million of which is transferred to the county, or to each of the two school boards. So that's why you sometimes see these numbers. And I just had that conscious thought today, so I thought I'd share it.
I got a couple questions. Sure. I see in the third quarter we had state training fees. State training fees for what?
Which one is it?
Page 2. Fifth item down. This is third quarter state training fees. 5,000.
Sounds like, does it have a T next to it? That's probably for our building department.
I think that's what it was. That's my recollection. Is it's a POCA code training.
Right.
And another bill I see, who is Indian Harbor Insurance Company?
That's your Indian Harbor Insurance Company is the company that we are self-insured to a certain limit, including the current litigation involving Mr. Slaughter. So we have to pay them, and this time around it was $3,700. That total, I mean, I'll get it. I now realize I was remiss in getting that number that may have been angled as we get, but we're probably about 15,000.
I know those, I don't want to talk about it now, but the question was raised at the last meeting. We think how much in legal fees have we paid for various Mr. Jeff Slaughter matters, Frank matters. I don't know to the penny, but roughly this year we spent about $25,000. Roughly 12 or 13 of that was for the litigation regarding the volunteer fire department, of which we're still under a certain deductible, and the other was government records council's issues. I think we have two things. So don't hold me to the penny, but rough numbers.
All right. I see we got a bill in here for moving deer carcasses again. Can I get a copy of that bill to see how many deer, because it was $158, and it doesn't tell us how many. If it's one carcass, I want the job.
No,
It's a set fee. It's a set fee per deer.
I'm saying, how many deer? I just need to know that question.
Yeah, it's like $40, $45 per deer, something like
Well, that must not be right. It was 158.
that. Again, don't know.
Okay.
Whatever the arithmetic.
Yes.
All right, and then I see we bought a bumper for a truck 700 for $800. And then we sent it to Mako to get it painted for another $800. Why don't we buy a chroma for $200?
I can't answer.
I don't know that answer.
I just
What
figured-
you going before, son?
How would I know that? The other thing is Johnny on the spot.
Okay.
I think we should look into it. They've got bought out, Jesse doesn't own it, he's got bought out by a big company, and I just had to look at my bills. We raised this almost 1/3 a day running, and I raised hell about it. They went to $290 a day per portage. I don't know how many we got.
Quite a few.
So, I mean, just looking at this bill, either call up and scream or tell them.
Can we possibly get
Do we
that?
bid that? Yeah, that's a good question.
No, because it's all, not that much when you start adding enough for the year, but I'll bring that to Mr. Hennessy's attention.
I mean, I don't know how many we have, but I mean, it raised my bill from $71 to $89 a month per ton.
For the same company?
The same, yeah, from Johnny on the spot. And it's extra savings.
So is that-
Yeah, he sold it months ago, and this new company raised all the rates.
No, I'm glad you pointed it out. I don't have answers, but I'll bring it to you.
Well, no, just so you pick it up.
Yeah,
Most of them are on fields. They're
Yes,
recreation.
yeah, they're all through recreation.
Yeah, but sometimes they order, extra 10 or something.
For recreation.
Might as well shop.
Absolutely.
All right, any other comments on the adoption this evening? The motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call?
Deputy Mayor Shaft?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wargo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mayor McNamara?
Yes, except to abstain for sequence. Committee reports, anything to comment?
Well, I'm trying to get a handle on the amount of deer being killed in this town, and it's very hard. I had a big talk with the police today. It's unbelievable what goes on. They had a deer hit on 537 right by Reformed Church this morning. They had another one hit on Larry, in Big Beach, one police officer was there, one police officer was there. And they didn't want to shoot it, this was on the road during rush hour. So they called somebody and had them come in here and take care of it. What they do is they file a card on this thing because there's no car, nothing, there's no accident report. So I said to him, I says, I'd like to know how many of these we have. We had 3 this morning before 10 o'clock. So I've asked him to get some kind of report here, liaison, if you can talk to him about getting me a copy of this once a month so that I can keep it in the file, just so we know where we're at.
Sure. I thought he was doing an activity report. That would have been an
Just for
activity report?
accidents.
Just accidents?
Only accidents, because we've only had, I looked at it, we only had 2 this morning.
So the deer didn't do it on purpose. That doesn't qualify as an accident?
Well, if there's no car accident, it's just a deer laying in the road, what do you do?
We know it was a car accident. We still have the car.
Well,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no report.
But you, but it's a report? Oh.
Right? That's, that part, we didn't have planning board this month. CNBA Thursday night has a card exchange at Trump, 6 to 8. That's about it.
Has everyone seen, I know you have, the deputy mayor has everyone seen the picture of that deer that the dog might?
Yeah, I got it if you want.
Somebody suggested we put it on the website, but I haven't gotten that far, but it's a pretty atrocious picture. You never think someone who doesn't hit the deer is gonna have a problem. In this case, the friend of all of ours was driving along in a pickup truck coming the other way. The deer flew up in the air, came through the windshield, and he broke his arm in a couple of places. He's recovering.
He swerved into the deer, so we come and hit him because his daughter was in the passenger seat.
And I have not a whole lot other than, I missed the fire company meeting, but we're gonna try to reschedule that one when we're around. That was totally my fault last week or 2 weeks ago.
Just a few things, Mayor. One is our first aid squad is always training, just as our fire department does. Last night I was fortunate enough to attend as a participant an extrication drill, and they always come up with scenario after scenario. We spent hours once again on last night working with the extrication equipment. Our local emergency planning committee, I'm very excited, and actually Chief Burke is here. So Coordinator Burke in that instance will be he's holding his first meeting as chair in November. And our Board of Health Officer, Tom Frank, you can imagine the amount of information is passing through his office and through myself as liaison for Board of Health on this Ebola epidemic. It's coming federal, obviously to state, to county, to local, and we're making sure that all the updated information is passed on to our first aid squad in particular and our police department in case they had any interaction with anybody that would be at risk. So I'm having several conversations every day with Mr. Frank, and we're keeping on top of that. That's it.
I have one quick question.
Yes.
Because I've been reading a lot about it, and obviously you always want to err on the side of being prepared, but is it an epidemic in your opinion?
Yes, in this not in this part of the world. So, but in this, as we can think of these horrible things that are happening in West Africa, and the statistics that I'm reading and looking at, and the amount of deaths and the mortality is 50%, and the amount of healthcare workers that's being transmitted to, it's just amazing. We're just an international world. So actually there's 4 people that are being monitored by different health departments, none in the township of Cold Snet, but 4 in the county of Monmouth. So it just goes to show you the amount of people that are just around and traveling, including making their way into Monmouth County. It's the county department and the local health departments are really on top of this, as the hospitals are, as you've been reading in the press.
Because I just read the article about, the number of deaths is 4,700, 4,900, something like that, in mostly obviously in West Africa, but 25,000 people a year die in the United States from flu.
And absolutely, almost every article that I read starts off with realizing that more people died from the flu this year, as they have every year, than this. So a lot of it's media-driven, I believe, but
Never hurts to
it
be
is
prepared, right?
never hurts to be prepared.
It's good to have a skill you don't have to use.
Exactly.
My only comment tonight, again, it has to do with the wildlife meeting. We had one after our last meeting, so nobody came. I did get a call from a concerned resident who was involved in a deer accident on Cedar Drive, rather, with children in the car expressing her concern about the deer problem. I invited the particular resident to come to the meeting. She made an excuse why she couldn't come, and although she was good enough to let me know about the problem, which we already were well aware of, again, people have to offer constructive input into resolving the problem. Complaining about a problem that we already know about does not really help us much. So if you want to participate and be constructive, we have these meetings, that's the forum to do it, please come. And I know I'm preaching to the people that come anyway, but the hope again is that our media representatives will continue to reiterate to the reading public that if they don't participate, nothing's going to get done. And nothing they want to get done is going to get done. So,
Other thing.
sure.
I got two different complaints now about deer hunters in Big Brook. Bob and I talked about it. And I thought, you know what we should do is just buy some signs and put it up.
A fishing game posted somewhere.
That's in there, this is up there.
Yeah.
What, pretty good?
No, behind Crime Road, Hillsdale, where, you know where the kids all go for the shark season, all that whole area is all Big Brook. And that's a big piece of our town as far as,
We could post.
because there stands in there, you know.
Mr. Orr has identified where he thinks there's some illegal stands on our property, and we're aggressively trying to.
Yeah, we've done that in the reservoir area, we'll do that any place that we apply.
Yeah, as long as people call up, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we
So
said.
we invite legal responsible hunters, we will not tolerate people that do not hunt responsibly or legally, and hunting on public property is absolutely prohibited in this town, so.
Should I clarify those 4 people that I talked about, that I was sitting here thinking, nobody's infected in Monmouth County. Okay, as long as that didn't come out as detailed as in my mind, there's people that have traveled to parts of the world, West Africa, that are either visiting and or live in Monmouth County. So under guidelines from the state, they would just have to stay in touch with their local health department for 21 days after their travel and make sure they have no signs and symptoms. So there's no infected people in the county of Monmouth, nor do I think the state of New Jersey. So,
And that's incubation period, and
21 days.
the transmission is at the latter part of the infection period.
Yes, and more so people are infectious. They definitely have symptoms. Right.
Anything else, gentlemen? All right, folks, any comments from the public this evening? Yes, sir. Al?
Alan Ryan, 24 Ann Street, life member, cul-de-sac number 2 Firehouse. August 28th, the fire company, fire department was dispatched out to a structure fire at 1 Provincial Place. The guys that were on that call did a smash-up job. They saved the house. They kept the fire contained to the garage. The homeowner wrote a very, very nice letter to the chief, and those guys should be commended, and they did a heck of a job. They really did.
Do you happen to have a copy of the letter?
I do not, but it was a real nice thought.
Good thing to
And
share.
it just goes to show, you know, that we're always ready.
I can tell you, word got around now, so you know, and Chief, I don't know if you were made aware, we certainly talked amongst ourselves when we saw each other, but my memory serves, we talked about it at the meeting we had right after the first one in September, because it was a bang-up job, and somebody was smart enough to pull the car out of the garage to keep the house from becoming a problem. That was a power move.
And they kept it right from the house.
Yeah. It was,
They just contained in the garage. Smash up job. 12:30 in the afternoon.
Yes, we were, we were aware pretty much immediately on that one. That was
Kudos to the brothers, yeah.
Significant save on a nice, very nice house, and some nice cars too that were saved in that particular fire also. The homeowner was a car collector, and still is.
I heard.
Sorry, I didn't put it in the past tense. Yeah, but,
I heard.
so, yeah, definitely kudos to the fire department on that save. That was a big one.
One other thing, on Deputy Mayor Schatzel's comments on the Ebola, just to go to show you, today I'm looking at the paper, the Post, and they're saying that doctor that is now in incubation in New York, he's being treated. He apparently, they said in the paper that he lied where he went beforehand and everything. So that's just coming out now, like 5 days later, 7 days later. So what he said about the media, it really is, you really got to take everything with a grain of salt. And break it down. Yes, exactly. No hysterics. Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Vince?
Yes, a couple of things. First of all, I know that there are news reports now that there have been a couple of incidences of blue tongue disease of deer in Somerset and Morris counties, and that this is something, while not transmittable to humans, can be transmitted to other livestock. And given that we have such a significant horse population, I'm wondering whether this is something that is getting any concern in the equine industry, and if that indeed, because there are times, you're driving along, you see horses in a pasture and deer in the same pasture. This is something that potentially, if it is transmittable between those two species, could pose a significant economic problem. And so I just offer it as something perhaps the wildlife community might want to consider as something to research and additional.
I think we'll kind of do we'll pawn this one off on the health folks, because there's a health concern, even though it's to the animals. So yeah, I'll have Deputy Mayor Schatzel touch base with Tom Frank. And I did read the same article, I suppose. So I did see that.
The other thing, we talked about street trees. I think it's important to remember the street trees, when they're planted, they're there to really provide an aesthetic unity to a neighborhood. They reduce thermal gain on roads, on stormwater. They provide, a real aesthetic value. So in terms of allowing people to just arbitrarily remove trees that were put there for a public purpose to create a character to a neighborhood, I think it's going to be important to, figure out. I'm really not sure why we stick them on private property instead of in our right of way where we have control, because obviously, as long as the tree is there for a public purpose, particularly in subdivisions where the utilities are underground, where a tree is not posing any threat to it. If a tree is healthy and someone just decides, I don't want the shade, I don't really, want it. Well, if it's there for a public purpose, street tree, we may want to say, too bad, it's in a public right of way and it's there for a public purpose. So I think that's a balance that needs to be struck in the discussion and as you go about doing this, because I remember an instance where a developer had put in larger trees than required simply to give, a more attractive appeal. And he saw them, and he was furious when he said, look, I put them in around, and one owner came, he took them out, he didn't like them. He didn't want them. Yeah, he said it ruined the whole look. And I think that's something that, we need to be mindful of, because that does add value and unity to our neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
Michael Viola, Provincial Place. I'd like to compliment the fire company as well. I live a few doors down, and they did a bang-up job. On the shade tree issue, I compliment the township addressing this, because on the Shade Tree Commission in the previous lifetime, it was very evident that accountability and liability as far as the financial costs with trees that are in the right-of-way or near the right-of-way within someone's property could cause tremendous financial hardship on the community. We experienced it when I lived up north due to Hurricane Sandy. It was about $225,000 tab to clean up those trees. So having a very, very clear process and ordinance as to what is and what isn't with a homeowner is, I think, is very, very astute and good management for the future. Question pertaining to salt for the coming season. Is the township in a stronger position as far as salt for an inclement weather? If we have a repeat of last year, we'll be in a better position. We won't have to mix with sand, et cetera, et cetera. That's a question that I toss out there, because that inclement weather is kind of paramount Saturday.
Started as early as we could 2 years ago.
To the extent that we can answer that, the answer is yes. We have a good supply of salt right now. However, if it's another severe winter and supplies run short, we can only go so far as to fill up our salt shed, which we plan to do when we need this season. So we're cautiously optimistic, is that what they say?
Yeah, we were hoping not to have to worry about it this year.
I understand the international salt festival.
It's more than salt.
Yeah.
But we have a storage issue. We only have one, it's
It's
a large shed.
That doesn't store a season's allocation, does it?
Well, normal, an average season,
Normal one.
yeah, an average season, it's more than capable of doing that. An abnormal one like we had last year, hopefully we will not have this year. Becomes a problem, but the real problem was a shortage of.
Availability.
Yeah.
And truth be told, quite frankly, the mayor and the deputy mayor are being modest. The reality is that we fared much better than most. We added sand to the salt prophylactically to make sure we didn't have a problem, and also because of their connections, we got salt from other sources ahead of the curve. So truth be told, we were in a much better position than most, and we never ran out, and had more than most. So it's just another probably great example of why it's wonderful to be here.
Based on having the winter that we had last year and the challenges with salt, as we just discussed, were there any key learnings that police department shared as far as parts in town that were susceptible to black ice? I bring to mind Clover Hill Road at the entrance.
Clover Hill Road is a word problem.
I toss out there that if we have extreme weather where the temperature drops, that you might proactively want to close entry from 34 onto Clover Hill, as also close the top coming down with police barricades. Because there was a fatal accident, Clover Hill resident slid into 34 during good weather. If there's black ice there in the morning, that could be a real nasty situation.
No, we're going to this point.
And also, there were some lessons learned. I know that we talked to the county, and there was some liquid application of liquids.
So it was a pre-treat,
Pre-treatment ahead of the storm to cut down the amount of salt that was used, and also to eliminate those other problems.
Yeah, so
And
Well, there's some areas nestled in town that are up and down that, are potentially, are hazardous areas. If that temperature gets real low, I just think for public safety that it might be prudent to consider proactively managing that area from a safety perspective.
yeah, we'll talk to the chief about it.
Thank you.
Anything else, folks? Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff Sauter, 41 Ann Street, Colts Neck. Just a couple quick things here. Hearing everyone, commending everyone so much, it's good. I want to commend Tom Orgo for going through the bills there and showing, I think, a real genuine effort there before you approve the bills. I think that's very good that you do that and really make sure you understand what all the bills are. So that was very good. Just to jump on what Alan Ryan was saying, I think that's good what the firemen did. For the over 20 years that I was on the fire department, I don't think anyone ever brought any good news to the town committee of what these firemen do, to risk their lives. So that was good, and hopefully they can provide that letter, and we can commend those guys that specifically got in there and put their lives at risk to get that bash up safe. The LoSAP, I think that's another great program, like I've always said, just as long as it's managed properly. I'm sure with Mike Burke in there, we'll be managing that in tip-top shape, so that's really good. And then finally, on that pancreatic cancer day coming up this Saturday morning that Mike, I know you said you sponsored, hopefully. I'll see you there. We'll be running, and it's a good thing for Neptune Township and the County of Monmouth, so. Good. Thank you.
Anything else, folks? All right, See no further comments from the public, I'm going to close the public portion section of the township committee meeting. I'm going to entertain resolution 2014-124, that's a motion to go into executive session. We do not anticipate coming back into the public session this evening.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? So carried.
Thanks for coming out tonight.